Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of RSR Unscripted. This is a fairly new concept that the partners are trying out here at RSR. If you subscribe to our Retail Paradox Weekly, you know we're fairly prolific when it comes to writing. And we decided once a month what we would do is rather than write 3 articles, we would just have one of our sort of informal conversations that we have internally among the partners and record it and hack it up and put it out to you in little digestible pieces and see what you think. So this is meant to be interactive. If there's something that we're talking about here today that you really like, please don't be afraid to reach out to us at info@RSR Research, or if you know any of us personally, obviously you know our personal email addresses are the same format. It is first initial, last name at RSR Research. So without further ado, I'm joined by my partners Paula Rosenblum, Brian Kilcourse, and Nick. Oh, you got me on a high there. Brian Kilcourse.
Hello.
And Nikki Baird.
Hey there.
So obviously the time of year we would be remiss. We can't get away without talking about the holiday season. So the first thing up, we are just coming off of the infamous Black Friday weekend, something that I think everyone has been trying desperately to escape all the promotions that have been coming our way. But first and foremost, partners, what do you think? Has Black Friday finally jumped the shark, or is it still a real thing? Paula, let's start with you.
Well, you ask it in an interesting way. I actually went shopping this weekend, believe it or not, something I hardly ever do. I needed some boat shoes, water shoes for my trip to Mexico, and I went to West Marine. And traffic was certainly down from prior years, but because I had time and because I didn't feel stressed and claustrophobic, I actually spent more time in the store. I actually bought 4 more items than I would have if it had been crammed full of people, you know, sort of grappling all over the bargains. So I kind of think that we might be getting close to a Back to the Future mode where it becomes a pleasant experience to shop on Black Friday rather than the chaos that it's been for the last 5-6 years anyway.
So just to follow on, you said you bought 4 extra pairs of shoes that you wouldn't have bought. Was that because of the blowout Black Friday deals? Okay.
It's 4 extra pieces of stuff because West Marine isn't a place I normally shop. But because I had time, I bought a T-shirt. I bought a T-shirt. I bought a shirt to wear when I snorkel so that I don't get keep the sun off my back. Stuff like that.
Okay. But you bought them out of necessity. You were in the store and they were ancillary purchases. It had nothing to do with Black Friday. It was a nice shopping experience, and you said, "Oh, this reminds me, I need it." So it was a typical shopping trip, is what you're saying.
Well, I don't have typical shopping trips, but yeah, I generally shop online because I can't stand shopping in stores. Actually,
okay.
So the fact that I stayed more than 5 minutes tells you that they were able to make it pleasant for me.
Christmas miracle. Okay. Nikki, you were going to jump in there with something?
Yeah, I would second what Paula said around that whole idea of getting back to good. I mean, I called my brother on Thanksgiving and his wife was at Target. I didn't even ask. But I feel like in the past, I have been dead set against the idea of retailers opening their stores on Thanksgiving. It just seems excessively expensive, a waste of labor dollars, a waste of HVAC, all of that stuff. You could still have all of that activity happen on Friday or online. I mean, that is an option. But at the same time, what I found for me on Black Friday when I went out was that all the crazy people shopped on Thursday and they were out of the way. And so it left a much more pleasant experience on Friday. Although for me, we found a story of haves and have-nots. So we were driving around. I mean, we went to a Walmart, we went to a Target, we went to a Best Buy. We kind of hit all the usual places, and they were about as busy as a regular Saturday. Like they were busy, but they were not excessively busy by any stretch of the imagination. And we drove by a mall that just redid top to bottom, total renovation. And that mall also fairly empty, like nobody in the parking lot. But then we went to Park Meadows Mall in Lone Tree, Colorado, which is very much an A kind of mall. It's got a lot of high-end stores. And that was our first mistake at the end of the day. because we couldn't even get into the ring road for the mall. We ended up parking off the property and having to cross the street and then walk through the entire parking lot to get into the mall because it was so crowded. And people were walking around with bags and buying stuff. And it was definitely a wild and it was like, wow, everybody in the state of Colorado is like in this mall and nowhere else. Like, how did that happen? So it's kind of interesting how that turned out.
That kind of makes sense because, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, Paula.
It makes sense because I've heard the department stores actually did rather well, much to everyone's surprise. So that would speak to high mall traffic. So that does make sense. I didn't venture there. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
No. I mean, you raised a really interesting point about the haves and have-nots. I mean, for those of you who've been following Retail Paradox Weekly for a long time, you'll recall that for probably about the first 7 or 8 years of our company's existence, because we are geographically dispersed all over this country, each one of us would go out at a different time on Black Friday and report what we were seeing in our local shopping environments. And I remember the last time we did this, I think my walk-away conclusion was this has become a very depressing event, right? Because the people that are waiting in line to purchase things at Walmart on Thanksgiving night, they're there because they have to. I mean, I talked to kids that were waiting to buy a fireplace. And I remember thinking, this isn't about Christmas joy. This is about, the time of year where you're able to afford the things that otherwise you cannot. So that's interesting to hear you say that, Nikki, that it's sort of, perpetuated itself, that Thursday is for people who really have no other choice. And therefore, because they are have-nots, they have to miss out on one of the most, wonderful, if not sacred holidays that we're all entitled to in this country. Whereas Friday is more for the people who are like, well, let's kind of harken back to those, golden memories of holiday shopping while wrapped in fake fur and drinking $5 coffees. So that's really interesting to hear that was sort of, what you saw this year. What about you, Brian? Did you get out? Did you stay home with family? What'd you do?
Well, I did get out. I live in a small town, and we went to the downtown area, and we enjoyed ourselves. We had a good time. I actually was thinking about it in the context, about 3 years ago, I guess it was, that RSR collectively said, just as you've been discussing, that Black Friday had gotten out of control. It had turned into this bizarre feeding frenzy of, let's call it, fake excitement about big deals that didn't really exist. And we've written a lot about how many flat screen TVs do you actually need, those kinds of things, and are the prices really that much better? And there's a lot of evidence out there that it was all manufactured frenzy, that had become an event unto itself, in this kind of feeding frenzy of price, which to me is a glorification of everything that's wrong with retail right now. That we've talked about this forever. So I was encouraged going down my little downtown area in Mill Street and Grass Valley to see that it was delightfully old-fashioned. I think what Paul is talking about. The stores are all open. They had their the bargains of the day, the Christmas specials. There was a surprising amount of warm cider out there for customers to drink, and people serving them drinks and stuff like this. It was very old-fashioned. I enjoyed it. Reminded me of when I was a kid. I thought, I remember really enjoying this, the day after Thanksgiving, getting out and looking at some of the bright displays and seeing all the holiday cheer, and not feeling compelled to run over my 3 nearest neighbors to get to yet another flat screen TV.
So here's the question: did you buy anything?
Yeah, I did. Sure.
Okay.
Of course, I did. All things for somebody else. Fun gifts. And by the way, I didn't wait for the sale price. I went there with a set of ideas of what I wanted to buy. I went and bought them. I enjoyed the spirit. I enjoyed the mulled cider, and it was great. I enjoyed myself. It was very old-fashioned.
I mean, the 2 numbers I'm going to be looking to see, which we're not going to see for a while yet, was average transaction value. Because, again, my contention is that it's up. Traffic may be down, but average transaction value was probably up. And
what was it last year, Paula? Was it 260 something like that? 264?
Oh, I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
Okay. but I'm just curious to see. Again, going back to my experience, which it wasn't a feeding frenzy. It was oh look, I can browse, I can actually shop, which is an experience I haven't had in a very, very long time. So I'm curious to see that, and that we'll know sooner than later. But what we won't know till later is the earnings. How much of a bath did retailers take? Because part of my contention here is that the race to the bottom is drawing to a close. I think that pretty much everyone is fairly close to price parity. Amazon is no longer the price king unless by a couple of shekels, a few bucks here or there. And so it becomes, who do you trust? It's a very different game than it used to be.
I will say on that I found it very interesting at Park Meadows, the very busy mall, that there were retailers there who were, 40% off everything, 50% off everything, but they were in a much smaller proportion than I'd seen in the past. And there were a lot more retailers who were advertising buy one, get one 50% off. So the deals weren't as good, but there were still some that were mass, undifferentiated, my whole store is on sale, come inside kind of offers.
Yeah, I was in Los Angeles for a wedding, so I missed out on a lot of this. But I realized when I was getting to come home that I had forgotten a winter coat and I needed a new one anyway. So I actually stopped into a local mall, went into a store, and Nikki, to your point, they had the signage in the window that said 40% off everything in the store, except for the two different things that I really liked. So it was kind of a case of, we know exactly what people are stopping in here for, and we're just not going to give them deals on that at all. So sounds like an encouraging start to the holiday season. Shifting gears slightly, although really not much. I guess it would be kind of ill of us to talk about Black Friday without talking about its evil twin brother there, Cyber Monday, which for people who don't know where that name comes from, Cyber Monday used to be when no one had computers at home and they would wait until they got to work on Monday to use the strong broadband connections at their workplace to do some shopping. I think we can all agree that concept is sort of flown. But the one thing I've noticed is Cyber Monday is no longer a day. There is no compulsion on my part to purchase anything on Monday, because I know come Tuesday, every one of these retailers who's reached out to me and said, these are the biggest deals of the year, I know on Tuesday morning I'm going to get an email from that exact same retailer saying, just in, this deal has been extended all week for Cyber Monday week. Has everyone else had the same experience? And if so, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. Right.
Yep.
Well, and on the flip side, Home Depot was sending out Black Friday announcements in April. It's Black Friday.
Is it really April?
I swear to God, they said, here it is, Black Friday deals now. So, the whole sales side of it is washing out to nothingness. I mean, I was asked a question by ABC News, of all people, did I think Black Friday had lost its luster? And I responded really similarly to this conversation, which is, I think it's returning to what it was, because the race to the bottom is just coming to an end. And it's just become a catchphrase for get a sale, get a deal. It's kind of lame, I describe the shopping experience as heinous, which they seem to really like.
They love those real descriptive words.
I know.
Yeah.
I am. And I was in the same mindset around Cyber Monday, that I thought, well, Black Friday probably really isn't going to go anywhere one way or the other. Ideally, it won't be a frenzy, but it will at least still draw shoppers out and people can have a good time. That would be great. But Cyber Monday to me just seems like a fake thing, right? It was like a made up day of sales. But the problem is now I think it is entrenched. So I don't think it's going away, because I was of the mindset, oh, this is going to disappear. And then when you look at the traffic numbers that happen on Monday, it really has sort of become that scoop up of, well, maybe people went out over the weekend and didn't find everything that they were looking for, and I have an opportunity to get them if I put the right deal in front of them. And now there are shoppers who are definitely planning their purchases around what kind of deals am I going to see on Cyber Monday, and to your point, Steve, probably all week long as well. So whether it's made up or not, I think it's here to stay. I think it just sort of reflects that buying behavior of, well, I still have a shot at your list. So as a retailer, I'm going to take a shot at that list, whatever's left.
Yep.
I found out who made it up, interestingly enough. It was Scott Silverman and Ellen Davis.
Right.
Scott was the head of shop.org at the time.
Yep,
and
that's right.
It was because people didn't have the bandwidth at home, so they'd shop at work. Anyway, Brian, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying you're right. But the thing that bothers me is the industry has just lost, as a whole industry, has lost any bottom line discipline, and consumers now are trained to wait for the deal. And Nikki, what you're saying is they've figured out that they can wait for the deal online. They don't have to wait in a line in front of a store. So of course that's more convenient. But it's still kind of it's a behavior that I think that we as an industry have to start to wean consumers away from. That without bottom line discipline, you can't survive for very long. And not too many companies have the advantage that Amazon has, is to be able to subsidize their entire retail business with a very, very healthy web services business, where you're not like Walmart. Because you have such supply chain expertise, you can drive costs down to the floor and wait your competitors out until they finally fail. But the rest of the industry has to have some bottom line discipline. And unfortunately, we've spent the last 10 years or more training customers to just wait for that email that Steve got. This just in. Cyber Monday deals extended until Friday, What nonsense. We just have to stop this. I don't know what else to say. We just have to stop. Consumers can shop anywhere, anytime, get the best deal online. They know how to do that. They're not dumb. But there's this low price frenzy is completely manufactured. It is. We have to unmanufacture it.
And the other question that we have to understand is how much inventory is everybody buying? Because the frenzy will continue if you've overbought. I mean, the one good thing that happened during the Great Recession is that inventory became a bit of a scarce commodity, and that was kind of ironically a good thing. And I remember Nikki and I were both really disappointed when as soon as the economy started coming back, retailers started buying way beyond what they had bought in prior years, like way beyond. And that's just so disappointing.
Yeah. And that's
that gets
and that's
to an
the
interesting
potential for, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to finish up with Paula. The inventory question is a good one because, there were record level imports this summer and fall. So it seems like there's a lot of inventory hanging around this year. So we'll see if retailers start to panic towards the end of the season.
This just in, Cyber Monday extended well into January.
Yeah. Now the other half of the game, if at some point, if you believe they're consistently overbought, that's why you give gift cards. That's why God made gift cards, is that your gift is a gift card, and then you go out afterwards. That's why December 26th has become such a big day also, by the way.
Sure.
You go out and you see, okay, how panicky are they? And because the spring goods are on their way, guaranteed. The only place you don't see that is in TVs, because Super Bowl is coming. And so there's no rush to wash out the inventory then at all. But that's the big question. That's the other big question, is sell-through.
Okay, well, keeping in light of all this, who do you guys, again, we are not in the business of making predictions. We never have, we never will. But as far as retailers that you think are doing a good job, that you expect to do well, or you would like to see do well this holiday season, you guys have any fan faves?
Well, I like Target. Just because Target has always struck me as, they probably wouldn't appreciate this, but to me, they've always been one of America's most interesting traditional retailers. And I mean traditional in the full sense of the word. They're kind of an old-fashioned retailer in a lot of ways. they've rolled with the times. They've made lots of false steps here and there, but they keep moving forward, systematically pushing forward, and they continue to be a destination. So I like them. I like that kind of long, steady pull retail behavior.
Yeah, they've been doing some interesting things in their stores, actually, at least at the store where I shop. I mean, a lot of the stuff around home goods, they've done a lot of revamping and moving around and bringing in, you know, Joanna Gaines and kind of breathing new life back into that category. They'd kind of gotten away from that category for a while. So I'm interested in seeing how that does for them.
Yeah, they've just completely remodeled the store that's local to me. And, you know, at first it's a little bit frustrating because you spend years figuring out how to navigate that place. And then all of a sudden, everything is exactly where you don't expect it to be. But I will say, after that initial sort of, 30 seconds of frustration, you realize they put a lot of thought and effort into this. The layout is much more intuitive. The signage is a lot better. The lighting is better. Everything about it is much more inviting. So I agree with both of you that they're, somebody to look at in a positive light. Were you going to say something else, Nikki? I didn't mean to cut you off if you were.
I was just thinking, I mean, I've been watching Macy's a lot more closely lately. Department stores have been such a challenging vertical this year that, and especially Macy's in particular, because they've been such a poster child for omnichannel change. It's kind of like, boy, if they can't figure it out, I don't know who will. But that whole Black Friday credit card going down, both online and in the stores, and I feel so bad for them. So,
yeah. Me too. Me too. That's just, yeah. So, that there's certain cardinal sins, and Brian and I mutter about certain IT practices, like doesn't anybody do load testing anymore, and doesn't anybody have backup credit card processors anymore? Just from a practitioner basis, I feel like there are some basics that have really gotten lost. And on the plus side, we're not artisans trying to make packages anymore. Trying to make our own applications anymore. We've gotten, as an industry, much more package oriented. On the minus side, gosh, fundamentals have been lost that just were a standard. I got into it with, I can't remember which vendor it was, who said, with our application, because we're in the cloud, there's no need to freeze what you're doing between from September to December. And I almost ripped the guy's head off. I said, yes, there is. You don't do those things. That's like saying, no, I can play Russian roulette today. I know that 5 of the chambers are empty. Terrible.
It's so funny that you should talk about Steve, Paul, and I do grouse about this because we're both recovering CIOs. But I was thinking about Macy's. When I was a CIO, we had 2 lines to Visa, one to San Mateo and the other to McLean, Virginia, which is where the big processing centers were at the time. And we had system monitors on those things all the time. Actually, it was network monitors, and we knew exactly the shape of it. It was a kind of a double humped curve for Visa credit card volumes, and it was a really accurate indicator of what our day was going to look like. The only thing we didn't know was where the starting point was on the vertical plane. What was the initial volume that caused the double hump curve to trigger? But we managed to those numbers really, really closely. And we kept really accurate histories of what the volumes had been, so we could essentially predict the day as it was beginning, and almost never went wrong. But the other thing is we knew when Visa was getting into trouble. We could start seeing the rejects on the network, and we knew to redirect traffic to the other site. And this was just, I thought that's the way everybody did it. And much to my surprise, here we are many, many years later, 15, 16 years later, and to discover some very big retailers still don't even have that level of visibility. I thought it was the way everybody did it.
Right. There are just basics that are being lost, I think. But that doesn't, getting back to who we root for, because I am rooting for a couple of them, and one I'm really rooting for is Best Buy. I think Hubert Joly has done an outstanding job. I think that those stores are shoppable. The prices are comparable. Their service is really good. I think back to 2006 when I was in a Best Buy and I asked an employee a question and he just turned his back on me and walked away. Versus now when you go in and they can't wait to talk to you and they're amenable and they'll actually even go pick something up for you. This was when we still did our Black Friday things. You know, it's kind of impressive actually to me, and I really do wish them the best for real. I really do.
Good call, Paula. That's a good one.
What about you, Steve? Who's your fan favorite?
Well, you know, I always pull for the people who sit out on Black Friday. Obviously, you know, I love REI. I spend way too much money at that store personally. I love the OptOutside campaign. I did notice this year, I might have just missed it, but I don't know if you guys recall last year there was the whole Patagonia donated 100% of profits. They didn't do it this year.
They didn't do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't profits, it was revenue. That's why I bought a T-shirt, because it wasn't profits. It was 100% of whatever the take was they were giving to charity.
Oh, wow. Okay. I was under the impression it was profit. So, yeah. All right. Well, then that probably helps explain why they might not have done that 2 years in a row, because I remember the numbers being enormous last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I pull for companies for altruistic reasons, right? And North Face just actually bought up a whole bunch of land down in Patagonia itself to make it available for people to go and actually map it out to hike sort of wild lands. I've never liked North Face before. Now all of a sudden I'll be loyal to that brand. So things like that go a long way with me. But as far as what I think will do well, I think there'll be a lot of services as gifts given this year. I mean, just when I look around my own social circle, I see a lot more people interested in travel than they are things.
Yeah.
I see people sort of reaching a saturation point with things, and the things that they value are the things that enable experiences. So, you know, I think it'll be a good year for airlines. I know there was some crazy deals on Black Friday, some flights that people were looking at that were 2, 3x, and then for a couple hours on Black Friday were made much more available. You know, certainly subscription-based makeup services and clothing services online. I think we'll see more of that sort of thing. And to Brian's point, or actually to your point, Paula, gift cards. You know, it's never a bad year to be in the gift card business these days. So.
Yeah, the problem with it is you don't see the revenue till afterwards. I guess I
right, and you're getting pennies on the dollar because things are marked down 80%. I understand, but it's still, you know, there's still a lot of money gets bought on those things that never get spent at all. So
I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out for my hopes for the independent retailer too. As the child of one, or the daughter of one, I'm not a child anymore. As the daughter,
we didn't talk about Small Business Saturday, did we?
No, we didn't, and I don't know much about it. Well, that was when I was at West Marine, which isn't a particularly small retailer. But I really wish the independent retailer well. I think there's an opportunity because the other thing, along with experiences, people are really interested in curated assortments. That comes clear from everything that we study, and I think that's where the small retailer really gets a chance to shine.
That goes back to my experience on Black Friday in little downtown Grass Valley. They are all independent retailers, and they were all jammed, and it was all old-fashioned. But I was thinking, this is what I really like about retail: that these small entrepreneurs, they've got a specialty, they've got something that makes them unique, and there were people out there just enjoying it. And they weren't looking at price, I'll tell you that. They were looking for the experience. And we talk a lot about experiential retailing in the context of, you know, blended digital and physical experiences. But there is still that satisfaction of walking into a great little store with a single, you can't even call it a register, it's a little Square device, which, by the way, Square had volume-related problems on Black Friday too. But I didn't find anything in the news about it, but I sure saw it in action in my little street. But you know, they're offering an experience. They're asking you to enjoy them and their vision of a great brand, and it was really fun. That's the part I like best about retailing, and I got to experience it, so it was a pleasurable thing for me.
I think that
well, this is all good. I was going to say, Nikki, are we missing anything?
I was just going to wrap up on that experiences thing, that it does seem like the retailers who are the best at putting together these experiences that people are looking for outside of maybe travel. But you know, I mean, I'm looking at gifts to give friends, and all of those things that I'm looking at are, you know, wine tastings and distillery tours and snowshoeing expeditions and, you know, things like that, as opposed to actual physical gifts. So it's more about the time that we get to spend together as friends than it is about the actual item that we're giving. And it does seem like it's the smaller independent retailers who, I mean, as I'm looking at all of these are not chain retailers that are offering these gifts, these experiences. These are small retailers that are doing that, so they stand to benefit a lot.
Well, that reminds me. Wait, one more thing. It would be really cool if people supported the wineries in Sonoma over the next couple of months, because the buildings burned. I think at least from one of them. A good friend of the firm, Gladys Lau, sent me a bottle of wine and encouraged me, or actually 4, after the hurricane, and encouraged me to really buy from those wineries because they had a lot of rebuilding to do. And so I would encourage people the same.
Well, a couple things have come out of this from me. One, Paula, I'll want to know the name of that vineyard because I will absolutely help support them. And 2, Nikki, just while you're putting together your gift list, I was just going to put it out there. I would love to go helicopter skiing. So if that's something that you're doing. But in all seriousness, people, thank you very much for joining us. We hope you've gotten some value out of this. This has been the second version of RSR Unscripted. If you like it, let us know. If you have ideas for how we could improve it, we would love to hear those as well. And we hope everyone has a great week and a great holiday season. Thanks again.